Out of all of the new for 2021 roller coasters, the one that is receiving the most hype is probably Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure, and recently I've seen quite a lot of people calling this a perfect coaster, combining an amazing layout with world-class theming. So today I'm going to take a closer look at what constitutes a perfect coaster and whether I would consider Velocicoaster itself perfect. Now it is pretty much impossible to say what makes a perfect coaster, as it's such a subjective topic. Obviously, the main objective of the parks when adding a coaster is to increase attendance and revenue by as much as possible, but I'm looking at this from an enthusiast standpoint. So to get the best overall idea of what the community would consider a perfect coaster, you need to look at some of the community polls, and probably the best is Captain Coaster. So taking a look at the top 6 rated coasters on Captain Coaster, which are Steel Vengeance, Zadro, Hakuge, Tiger, Lightning Rod and Untamed. They're all actually very similar, with 5 being RMCs and the other being Tiger, which is actually fairly similar to RMCs in terms of design and layout. All of these coasters have a good balance of airtime and inversions, but seem to lack slightly in terms of positives, which is definitely a trademark of RMC coasters. So those definitely seem to be an important factor for a perfect coaster. They also seem to have really unique elements such as zero G stalls and off-axis airtime moments, which I feel like especially nowadays is important for many enthusiasts. So to get an even better understanding of what makes a perfect coaster, I also asked my Instagram followers what they think makes a perfect coaster, and for examples of what they think the perfect coaster is. And generally, people said that the coasters need a varied layout, and there were also many people who also mentioned theming, which I think is an underappreciated factor when it comes to having the perfect coaster. And what my followers said definitely reflected all of the traits on the highest ranked coasters in the Captain Coaster poll, since they all had extremely varied layouts. So now you may ask, where does Velocicoaster fit into all of this? And I think it'd be easiest to break this down into many categories, which are the features which coaster enthusiasts value most. So I've narrowed this down to 7 different categories, and these categories are airtime, inversions, positive G-forces, comfort, pacing and flow, variety and uniqueness, and then the theming. Now, let's take a look at Velocicoaster. So to start off with airtime, Velocicoaster looks to feature plenty of airtime, with smaller pops in the first half, and some solid sustained and off-axis moments in the second half, such as that huge top hat, which looks incredible, and that outward bank turn, which looks to combine laterals and airtime. So Velocicoaster definitely checks the box with airtime. Now for the second category, inversions. Velocicoaster also excels in the second category. It only features 4 inversions, which isn't too many, but the overall quality of the inversions is amazing. And this ride also has a great balance, as all the inversions look to provide something different. There's a massive dive loop and immelment in the first half, which looks to have great positives in hang time. The zero G stall, which will be very unique with the zero G hang time, and the final load to the ground roll, which looks very whippy. And it is easily one of the most anticipated inversions among enthusiasts. So again, Velocicoaster succeeds in this category. Now on to the next category, positive G-force. This is something that many of the current highest regarded coasters struggle to deliver, especially with the rise of RMC. However, Velocicoaster seems to break this trend, with it looking to have some great positives on the compact turns in the first half, and on the helix in the second half. While this coaster is definitely no i305, the positives on it do look good enough, considering that it is not the main focus of the ride. And the positives on this coaster look to really complement the airtime and other forces, helping to make this coaster even more well-rounded. So in my opinion, it doesn't need the excessive positives such as i305. So long as it has at least good positives, then it's fine by me. And now for the comfort. This is probably the easiest category to decide, as it's hard to beat the new Intamin New Gen restraints. And this ride will probably also be really smooth like many other New Gen Intamin multi-launches. So honestly, there is no concern here. Now for pacing and flow. Whilst we haven't seen much of the first half, so it's hard to judge, the second half of the ride looks to deliver right up to the very end. So this coaster will definitely go out with a bang. As I said, it's hard to judge the first half too well, but it does look like there are a couple spots where it slows down, but the tight turns through the rockwork do look like they keep up a fairly good pace, and I'm sure it won't negatively affect the pacing and flow of this ride too much. And the rest of the ride in the second half looks absolutely phenomenally paced. So I would also say that this ride does succeed in the pacing department. And now for variety. Velocicoaster also excels in this category, with it featuring a very different first and second half, with a variety of different elements, with airtime, positives and hang time, whilst also having two great looking LSM launches. In terms of diversity, it's honestly really hard to beat this ride, and it looks to have so many unique elements, with the 0G stall, wave turn and off-axis hill. So you can't really complain in terms of variety, as Velocicoaster might just be the best coaster in the world for this, up there with rides such as Tiger and Wildfire. And now for the final category, the theming. And this is what really makes Velocicoaster stand out. The only thrill coaster with this level of theming is Taron, but even Velocicoaster looks like a step up from Taron. The first half looks to have some amazing rock work, and the second half over the water just looks spectacular. Not to mention this coaster's beautiful trains, which have an amazing design and light up at night. What's also cool is as it goes through the layouts, the lights start flickering, making it look like the trains have been damaged, which I think is an amazing touch. This coaster will also feature show scenes, so with all of this combined, you couldn't really ask for more theming on this level of thrill coaster. And honestly, this is a competitor for the best themed overall coaster in the world. So overall, Velocicoaster does really well in every single category, and it's probably the only coaster in the world to do so well in every category. So in that sense, it is perfect. It's got pretty much everything anyone could want in a thrill coaster. But then, why do I, and many other enthusiasts, believe that it won't even be close to the best coaster in the world? Surprisingly enough, in a way, Velocicoaster's perfection is almost its biggest flaw. The fact that it tries to do absolutely everything all in one coaster means that it doesn't really excel in any particular category, especially in terms of the actual layout and forces. Whilst it has great airtime, inversions and positives, from the testing, they don't look to be the best out of any coaster. Most enthusiasts generally really value rides with lots of airtime, and whilst Velocicoaster has its moments, its needs for variety means that it can't really focus on delivering airtime. That is the same with positives, pacing and inversions as well. So it does everything fairly well, but it doesn't do any particular feature outstandingly well. So does this mean that Velocicoaster isn't perfect then? Well, yes and no. Velocicoaster is really varied and delivers everything a modern thrill coaster should. But looking back at the Captain Coaster top 5, whilst they do have some of the variety which Velocicoaster has, they seem to focus more on one main feature and do it well. And in the case of most of these coasters, it is airtime. The best example is the community consensus for the best coaster in the world, and that is Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance has a primary focus on airtime and almost perfects it, mainly down to the sheer quantity of the airtime. And then the variety is a bonus. But the variety isn't what makes the coaster elite in the first place, it is the airtime. Or look at Lightning Rod. It is in the top 5 for Switch having a sole focus on airtime, proving that doing everything well does not make a coaster perfect from that standpoint. But really, it just depends on what you want in a coaster. Many enthusiasts wanted a ride that has as much ejector as possible, so in their eyes Steel Vengeance is perfect. Or some enthusiasts want a ride with the most insane positives, so for them i305 would be perfect. Velocicoaster instead combines everything together, which not only makes the ride great for enthusiasts, but also the GP, as they won't be overwhelmed by a barrage of airtime or excessive positives. So really from a park standpoint, Velocicoaster is as close to perfect as you can get, with it doing really well in everything, intriguing all thrill seekers, GP and enthusiasts alike. But as I said, for the individual, the perfect coaster is completely subjective, and for many it is yet to be built, but Velocicoaster sure is close. But I'd love to hear if you think any coaster out there is perfect for you, so drop your answers to that down in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.